This is a clip from one of our most recent episodes. For full episodes and more, please check us out on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Stitcher, and YourVibesPodcast.com. This episode is brought to you by Mulberry Mill. Mulberry Mill is a 100,000 square foot warehouse located in the heart of downtown Dixon and is Dixon's only co-working space. Current tenants include 22 private offices, the station event venue, and the Tennessee Artesian Market. Future developments include a 10,000 square foot event space, an office space expansion, and custom build to suite tenant spaces ranging from 100 square feet to 10,000 square feet. If you would like to join the Mulberry Mill family of small business owners, remote workers, artists, and entrepreneurs, please contact Andy Truman at info@mulberrymilldixon.com or shoot her a text at 336-693-4311.
Like, I tell her my crazy scenarios of how I think the actual life works and the world works, and
What is that?
that's diving into the rabbit hole. There's so many different ways I can look at this.
That
But
could be podcast number 2.
yeah, you might have to come on my podcast for that one.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. Is like,
Well, my faith is not mainstream.
mm-hmm.
I believe God is found from within.
Okay.
And whatever God's source may be, I believe it's just a central energy, a central light, a central energy source, and that everything that we see and interact with, and every person in the entire world, including Mother Gaia, which is quote unquote Earth,
Yeah.
is a living being within itself, and it is just one of the infinite expressions of God's source. I don't believe you have to go to church to find God. I don't believe that anything other than, quote unquote, the 10 Commandments of sorts. I think the 10 Commandments are an energetically driven vibrational system of rules that one must follow in order to ascend to the next dimension. And it's that sounds crazy to a lot of people, but there's a lot of books. There's a lot of Mayan scripture.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Egyptian scripture out there. There's a lot of ancient Chinese, Buddhism, Muslim scripture out there that bodes to that. And I just don't think anybody should judge anybody for how they live their life.
Of course.
Especially spiritually.
I don't think that's crazy at all.
It's so tender. Spirituality is so tender.
Yeah.
It's so tender, and it's so compartmentalized sometimes, which is not at all how God intended it to be. In every book of every religion, it shouldn't be what's the word I just said?
Compartmentalized. I can't do it.
You know what I'm compartmentalized.
There you
Yes. So, in this town specifically, it's a small town, but it's growing, and that kind of wave of people is growing older. And then there's people like us and a lot of the downtown business owners and a lot of kind of the C-level suite people in the banks and the insurance industries and even in the government departments that are younger, that are thinking in more of these, not necessarily quote unquote liberal, progressive definition, but they're progressive about life in general, and they're accepting of the way that people are and the things that people do, and we could get into a whole kind of conversation about racism and religious bias and things like that, but I don't think that it's as prominent as we're told it is. I'm sure it's out there. I mean, are you seeing it?
Yeah, I see all that stuff too, and I grew up Roman Catholic, going to church,
Me
and
too.
confessing my sins and all that, and that got old. Like when I was in my teenage 14, 15, I was
I don't
like,
need
okay.
to tell this guy that.
Yeah, I was like, this is a little weird. So I stopped, and I'll dive a little into that rabbit hole. It wasn't until years later, after depression and being let down by family members and finding my own self, that I'm like, man, there's something bigger to life. one of my favorite movies or favorite trilogies ever is The Matrix. And they're coming out with a fourth one now, by the way. But
so pumped about that.
Yes, me too. And
let's set a date. We're gonna go see that in theaters together.
Absolutely.
Is that cool?
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Let's do it. And there's lots of stuff you don't talk about just because some people are so deep down that they in their beliefs and they'll fight you if you're different than them. And religion's one of them. You know, gun rights and stuff. That's another one. But we're in a Bible Belt, so I feel like the odds are against me, and that's why I try not to talk about stuff like that. But just a small thing of what I believe is, I'm not saying I'm an atheist. I'm agnostic, which means I believe in something higher that's out there. And our souls are energy. Energy has to go somewhere.
Absolutely. We are a spiritual being having a human experience.
Yes.
Our bodies are meat suits.
So why I try to mess with my wife and give her all these different possibilities of how the world works is I tell her, think of Earth as a petri dish. Okay? And there's a lab out there with scientists, which might be the universe, the lab, and God might be the actual scientist running this experiment. And we're in a petri dish, and they're watching us evolve and seeing this time around how fast we destroy ourselves. You know, and years in our time might be seconds in their time. And who knows? You want to go even further? I said, you know, when UFOs come to Earth, that might be the scientists coming to do a status report. They're looking at us and saying, hey, look how far they've gone in this time. Oh, cool. All right, let's fly back. You know, that's what I tell her. She starts getting really mad at me, you know. But that's just one way to do it. How do you know that we're not a virus on a dog's ass? You know, like a zit.
Yep, absolutely, dude. Like, it's, you know, the movie Men in Black, you know? I mean, you take that cat's solar system necklace and you expound upon that kind of deal, man. And The Matrix, if someone, I've done it, you've probably done it, most likely, were to watch The Matrix and look at it as a documentary and not a movie.
Yeah.
Watch Star Wars as a documentary and not a movie. Watch Star Trek. Watch any sort of sci-fi type thriller as a just in the perception of a documentary and not an actual Hollywood movie. It changes the way you think about a lot of things because a lot of the messages being portrayed in that can be backed up for the most part with government documentation. And when you said look at Earth as a petri dish, is the same way I look at it, man. I mean, it's so you go back all the way back, man, to the Anunnaki. You go back to gene splicing. People write off hieroglyphics and they write off Mayan cave drawings. They write off how specific that those people had to be about building their temples and their pyramids. Like, it is unfathomable that people that we write off as people that were stabbing deer and just ripping meat and cooking meat, and that's all they knew. That's all they knew was just survival. There was no higher intelligence involved. Which is completely wrong.
Yeah, it's bullshit.
It's
They're more intelligent than us right now.
Yes, we've devolved since that point in time. You know, to the point almost to where, like Atlantis was 100% real. And full disclosure, I think Antarctica, from the research I've done, is Atlantis. And there was a pole shift that shoved it from, it used to be where Antarctica or where Australia was, and there was a pole shift and it shoved it down to the South Pole and immediately froze because they're doing core drill samples to where it was once a lush green environment. And there's random stuff that they found that I could go way off some rabbit holes, but this world is not as we expect it to be, or as that we've taught. Nikola Tesla proved everything is energy, frequency, and vibration. No matter what. No matter what. Period. Whether it be a rock, whether it be this table, and if one said person could match the energy of any quote-unquote material object, which there's more empty space than there is actual matter, they could push their hand through it. You know, they could walk through walls. There's government documents. the gateway process. Like, you could walk through a wall and they've proved it. It's been disclosed. Like, and that just brings into the whole picture of, what is it? What's going on? I mean, obviously the mainstream media has finally accepted this UAP, UFO, whatever narrative, but they're trying to write it off as, I'm a firm believer, as it's not this Independence Day narrative as to where it's a hostile environment. If they wanted to take over the earth, they would have done it already, man.
They're not trying to hide from us.
No. They would have taken it over. They would have destroyed everything they wanted to destroy and take it over. Their technologies are millions of years more advanced than we could ever imagine. And you know what? Is that the atomic bomb, so in the 40s and the 50s, is what set all that off. Is because splitting of the atom has a scalar wave effect. Scalar waves are faster than the speed of light. And once you do that, you break through the time-space dimension. And those scalar waves of ripping an atom in half and having this massive explosion may have an effect, a fallout of sorts, on this Earth, Mother Gaia planet that we have. But it also has an effect throughout the universe. And so once you have, Robert Oppenheimer explode the first atomic bomb, he quoted the Bhagavad Gita saying, I am, oh man, I'm just spacing out. I am, hold on, I'll find it. But that's when the UFOs started to show up, because then you had Roswell, you had Area 51, and then you had several other that came about at that point, and they have just increased at that point.
Especially now with all the Navy pilots' videos and stuff, and they can't explain it, and the Pentagon and all these people are saying, we can't explain it, this might be real. Have you seen all of the Bob Lazar stuff on Netflix and stuff? Such phenomenal input and stuff, And
Bob
people say
Lazar, man.
Conspiracy theorists, but, I mean...
Bob Lazar is a character, dude.
Yeah.
And I, I try to, hold on, I'm looking this up. I am death, the destroyer of worlds. What is it? Let's see. Now I become death, the destroyer of worlds, was his quote of after the atomic bomb went off, which is from the Bhagavad Gita. And if you read the Bhagavad Gita, it's the same description. Like, that is the atomic weapon was ultimately the downfall of that time period, is because you go into this hate narrative, into this division narrative, this destruction narrative. Like, even the paintings and the illustrations of the Bhagavad Gita, like, show this massive fucking bomb going off, man. Like, he knew what was going on. And it's... Things are not as they seem, Rick.
Not at all.
Not at all. And honestly...
if anybody knows, it's a New Yorker. 9/11 is not what it seems.
No, man. And that's lower level compared to why that happened the way it happened. There's so much that goes into that. Love you, dude. This is great. And honestly, like, this is these types of conversations are by far the number one reason I started this podcast, is because I started realizing all this stuff. I wanted to talk to some people. I wanted to get a foundation built. I wanted to get a following built. I wanted to have a communication platform of sorts for people to express how they feel about life, and just let them be open with no judgment. And there's been some real deep conversations that I've had on here, and unfortunately, the views are not where they need to be, but these are the type of conversations that we need to be having on here, and I hope to continue them.
Yeah,
for sure. Absolutely.
I'm definitely looking for round 2.
Cool. Yeah, and you've got your thing going, and I think that grab that off the table. Yeah, it's going to cause some interference on it. Yeah, you're good. I think that this is where this is going. Is that I think there's a lot of people, the Mayan calendar ended in quote unquote 2012, but coincidentally, that's when we went into the age of Aquarius, which is when people start waking up from a third dimensional aspect of life, which is fear and division, and doubt and all those types of emotions, and transferring into the fourth and fifth dimension, which is hope and love and unity and all those things. And so I think we can see that there's a narrative going on right now. There's a huge split as far as how everybody feels politically and socioeconomically and all that. But I think that there's a pretty heavy weight on unity right now on the earth, and I think that it's going in the right direction. It may not seem like it from the mainstream narrative, but talking to people like you and other people around town, I don't think it's as drastic as it seems.
If you just turn off the news and stop watching it, life will be better.
Just live your life, man. Right?
Exactly.
Right? Cool. Thanks again to Mulberry Mill for sponsoring this episode. If you are looking for an office or a creative space, or are someone looking for a beautiful and local event venue, please contact Andy Truman at info@mulberrymilldixon.com or shoot her a text at 336-693-4311. If you're interested in sponsoring an episode, please reach out to me directly via email at yourvibespodcast@gmail.com. Thanks again for listening, and always remember, stay vibey, my friends.